we're just going to have this little block in front of us for a moment, but I want to introduce everybody to Tobias. I don't really know what to say. I mean, honestly, in the strictest, definition of who you are, as far as you define it, you inspire diverse teams to face reality, which I love, problem solve, and contribute innovative solutions no matter what.
Yeah.
I met you in Belgium, actually. You were the keynote speaker at an event for AGFA. And I believe it was 3 nights. Yeah, it was 3 nights. And 3 nights they had international attendees there. I mean, there was many languages being spoken, more than English, and I was out of the loop on most of the conversations. However, for 3 nights, for half an hour, or for however long Tobias spoke, that room was silent. And the thing that drew me to him was that when Tobias finished talking, people didn't go back to just, oh, what time is it? What do I got to do? They actually turned to the person next to them and started having a random conversation about what you had just presented on. Essentially, your presentation about opening up your mind to meeting new people sparked everyone just to go, oh my God, that was incredible, and manifest actually what you wanted to happen. So you presented at the first Project Peacock. We brought you in from Sweden. You energized everybody. And I am just so honored and thrilled that you are speaking here today. One little fact about Tobias that I didn't mention: he is the founder of Combiner, which is his company, which I'll tell you more about. But he is also the former curator of the Nobel Prize Museum. Yes, that Nobel Prize Museum. So Tobias, I'm going to turn on your slides for you. I'm going to turn off my video, and please, take it from here. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Deborah, for having me. And as I often say, it takes a team to win. So it's not, this is very important for me. It shouldn't be just about me. It's about execution. It's about bringing things to life, pushing the envelope. And to make that happen, you need a team. And I prepared a short presentation for you, and I'm going to speak quite fast, so hold your hats. So this is called From Words to Action. And I'm a very firm, I like when it's organized. I never do things by chance. And as you can see, I've underlined the words and action. And the reason for that is because I believe that in order to be truly successful, it's not about passion, it's about obsession. And let that sink in. You need to find obsessive people in order to become truly successful. And I tend to have my special interests. So I have a background in Scandinavian languages. I was sitting here in Sweden at university analyzing grammatical structures of different names of plants in northern Swedish dialects. And I was counting how many of the names are ending with an O or with an S, etc. And I did that for a couple of years. I embraced my obsession, and then the university kicked me out, and I ended up working for different companies, and I ended up working for schools and universities and whatever. And then finally I was headhunted to the Nobel Prize Museum. And I'm not the typical museum guy. I am obsessed with words, so we go back to that. But the thing is not to get stuck in one specific area. So after being obsessed with words, which I'm still am, I moved on. And today I'm truly obsessed about making things happen, bringing things to life, the action part. And that's what I'm hoping to inspire people, because you listen to a lot of presentations and you get like super excited and you think this is great, but then nothing happens. And for me, that's not enough. It can't be just that. It must be execution. We must move to action. And I'm going to go to next slide. Let's see. Because everyone knows it's about data. And I often use this picture to present myself, because this is my brain. I was always obsessed by large amount of data. When I was a young kid, I collected information about different stuff, and then I did other things. When I went to university, I connected the language dots. And once again, it's not about just collecting, because you don't want to end up becoming this data hoarder. You need to connect the dots. You need to understand what you shall do with those this kind of informations. The same thing I did with the language patterns. It's not just about the patterns, it's about how you can use that kind of pattern. And I had this conversation with the company Apple, and they told me that they are also very obsessed with data, big data. But the trick is to understand how to use the big data and when to use it. And that's something you can learn from the data. But the question why, which is something you need to start with, will never become clear from the data. You need to start with the why, and then you start using the data. And this is, for me, so super important, because as Deborah told you, I used to be the curator for the Nobel Prize Museum, and the problem, I'm obsessed with Nobel Prize stories also, but the problem with a lot of people when you speak about the Nobel Prize is that people, they put those people on, those Nobel Prize laureates, on a pedestal, and they almost worship them as like idols or gods. And it's not about that, because the Nobel Prize is not about just individuals. It's about something else. And when I met Deborah, I told her that when you work within the Nobel Prize system, you don't ever call those people Nobel Prize winners. And she asked me, why not? Well, because if you start calling those people Nobel Prize winners, then the rest of us who didn't get the Nobel Prize, are we losers? Of course not. And this prize is not just about winning and losing, it's about pushing the envelope. And in one way, those people can be considered to be winners, but they have done stuff. They have moved from words to action. So they have participated and created a better world, making everyone becoming a winner. And for me, this is super crucial, because I think that we have had a society and a business where it was like, we have those people that win and those people that lose. That was normal. But speaking about the next normal, I think we need to move to something else. We need to move to something where we make everyone become a winner, almost like the Nobel Prize. And about this picture, I would like to say something about it, because I totally love it. And the reason for me loving it, it's because this was taken at a conference in Belgium many years ago. It was in 1927. There are 29 people in this picture. Out of them, 17 received the Nobel Prize. So in the same picture, you have Albert Einstein, but you also have Marie Curie, or Maria Skłodowska, as she's called in Poland, Schrödinger, etc., etc. And once again, this is amazing, because this was on a very analog meeting. And they gathered all those smart minds, and they did great stuff. And since I'm a little bit, as I told you, a little bit obsessed, when I worked for the Nobel Prize Museum, I didn't just work there. I learned by heart every Nobel Prize laureate. I have 950 Nobel Prize laureates in my head. And I love to play with the data and connect the dots. So if you take all the Nobel Prize winners and you take out what is the essence, what can we truly learn from those people, you will see that there are things that connect each and every Nobel Prize laureate. And one of those things is creativity. And creativity for me is a very interesting word, because a lot of people, they use the word creativity, but then if I ask them to define what it is, I tell them, I don't get this. I'm probably a little bit stupid. Can you please define what it is? Most people, they turn quiet. And then some people say, oh, it's about thinking outside the box. And I say, really? I'm not a big fan of thinking outside the box. I believe in thinking inside the box. I think that we need some kind of structure, some kind of boundaries, because if you allow people to do whatever they want to, nothing will happen. And a lot of people will get dead scared. But if you give people the tools, telling them you can do whatever you want within these boundaries, you actually free their creativity. And something that is super important here is creativity is not just about thinking. Thinking is something every human being has the capacity to do, so it's not just about that. Thinking unique is one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is to execute your idea. You need to execute your ideas. That's what the Nobel Prize laureates has managed to do. They have this new and unique idea, and they execute their idea. It doesn't matter if it's literature or if it's physics. A literature, maybe a laureate starts with an idea, let's write a book. And those people actually wrote books that were quite good. They got nominated. Eventually, later on, they received a Nobel Prize. But if you take a Nobel laureate, for example, in medicine, maybe he or she starts with a theory or like a hypothesis. Is it possible to develop a new kind of drug for cancer? And they spend years of doing research, and they develop that kind of drug. So for me, the Nobel Prize is not about old people coming to Sweden to receive a golden medallion from the Swedish king. I couldn't care less. For me, the Nobel Prize is about success stories. That's why I injected 950 Nobel Prize laureates in my head, because what can we learn from these kind of success stories? What is the essence and what is the learning outcome that can benefit everyone? And I would like to show you a picture from the Nobel Prize Museum. As I probably told you that I think most museums today are fairly dull. They are super boring. They look the same as they always been doing. And I can go to some maybe art museum, but most museums are boring. And when I started working for a museum, I didn't want to create boring exhibitions. I'm obsessed by words. So one of the things I did when I worked in the museum, I was painting words on the museum floor. And those words were not just chosen by me. I had this discussion with the Nobel Prize laureates, and I asked them about the creative process. And I asked them, what kind of skills do you need to be successful in order to have this new idea and to execute it? What is important? And a lot of Nobel laureates, they highlight the word persistency. I think this is super important, especially today when we talk about a lot of things is changing quite fast. You speak about technology, and then we start having this idea that everything is going to be super fast. We need to adapt. We need to develop everything maybe in 2 or 3 weeks. And something that we always underestimate is the time it takes to change. So if you think you're going to do this for like 2 or 3 weeks, you are dead lost. It's about persistency. And once again, we can be very inspired by some of the Nobel laureates because those people has been super persistent, some of them. Some of them worked with maybe 20 years before they were recognized. You probably heard about this Nobel laureate in physics, Higgs. He got the Nobel Prize for the Higgs boson. When he developed this theory, he couldn't prove it. And people told him, leave it. You will never ever be able to prove this. Change research area because this is mumbo jumbo. But the thing is, he was super persistent. He stuck to this theory, and after more than 20 years, they built and designed the accelerator in CERN in Switzerland. They collided those things, and he proved his theory. This is for me super amazing because I don't have the persistence. I don't have the stamina to do the same thing for like 20 years. I get bored every like 4 or 3 or 5 years. I would be a lousy researcher. But we need those kind of people that are very stubborn, that are very persistent. But if it was only about persistency, then the life could be super easy, and it's not. So I painted a lot of words on the museum floor, and sadly enough, they are not taking care of this. The words are disappearing. But I made a list for you because these are the words that I painted on the museum floor. I also painted communication. And why is communication super important? Well, because the Nobel laureates told me It's not always about being persistent. It's not always about being the smartest guy or the girl in the room. You can be super smart, but if you can't communicate your ideas so people understand what you talk about, you will fail. I did a keynote presentation before this COVID thing in Silicon Valley many years ago, and I met this fantastic company, and I spoke to the CEO, and he told me that his company was investing like millions of US dollars into research. And when I asked him, what are you doing research about? He told me, well, I'm just the CEO. I don't have a clue. I'm not a researcher. And I said, well, then you have a big problem. Because even if you are not a researcher, you need to understand what they are doing. Because otherwise, how are you going to help them? So communication is also crucial. And the word vision is super important. And the problem with vision or mission statements is that companies or people, they are using very abstract words. They are telling them as they are an innovative or sustainable or creative company. And they're using those abstract words and they never define it. And the problem with doing that is that then people truly doesn't understand what it's all about. Then they try to understand and they will probably interpret that in their own way. And then you will not have the same way of thinking. And then you will think in a completely different way. And it's impossible to work together. Those vision or mission statements has to be very clear. Everyone needs to understand what it's all about. Otherwise, you will not succeed. Of course, it's about hard work, but sometimes working hard is not enough. It's about finding people with the right competence. But this is very interesting because what's the right competence today and what's the right competence tomorrow? It's about asking questions, but it's also about the word disrespect. And I love the word disrespect. That's my favorite one of these. But the problem with disrespect is that people, they don't get it. And often to explain it, I tell this story. There is a Nobel laureate from Australia called Barry Marshall. Once in a time, it used to be like this, that the people thought that if you stress too much, you got ulcer. And there were these big medical conferences where medical doctors were telling people you shouldn't stress too much because you get ulcer. Barry Marshall, who was a researcher, he didn't believe in that. He thought that ulcer was caused by a bacteria. But since everyone else was so convinced it was about stress, he was not allowed to do experiment on this. So he asked, can I test this on rats? Of course not. And what did he do? Well, he took this jar back home, he grew this bacteria in his living room, and he drank what was in the jar, and he got ulcer. He totally disrupted the whole industry. People were not super happy about that, but I prefer people telling the truth. It's the same with this girl, Greta Thunberg. She is not telling you anything new. She's repeating the same thing that research has been saying for the last 20 years. But when she does it, she gets a lot of media. We need those not very pleasant people because we need people that challenge things. And this for me is very important because it's not about people. It's not about challenging people. It's about challenging ideas. I think we should be totally disrespectful towards ideas. That's not the same thing to be totally disrespectful to people. I don't think you should be that, because you should always try to be nice to people, but you should separate the people from their ideas. And of course, it's about networks and meetings and courage and playfulness. But the secret source here is also that humankind and people, they are drawn to similar people. So people that are really good in communication, they tend to hang around with other communication people. People that are very persistent, they like other people that are very persistent. Disrespectful people tend to hang around with other disrespectful people. And it's not enough with just one of those words. You need to be able to combine those. Because if you have a group of people that are very disrespectful, they will tend to think in a similar way. And probably it's not always the right way to go. So the most important thing that we can learn from the Nobel Prize laureate is this. It's about collaboration. And this was actually something that I was not allowed to print on the museum floor. And don't ask me why, but I think if you look upon the Nobel Prize, you will see that most of the prizes are shared prizes. It goes to 2 or 3 people every year. According to very old rules, you can't give it to 5 people. And then people, they are not so obsessed with the Nobel Prize, they don't care. But if you are going into this rabbit hole, you will see that people have this idea that there are 3 people receiving the Nobel Prize in physics. Then they think, oh, they must be super smart and they are really good in physics. But it's quite common that you have like 2 people in physics working with someone that is really good in chemistry. Maybe one of them is super good in communication and he's working with some who is really, really persistent. So what the Nobel Prize laureates has managed to do, they have hacked the system. Because yes, the key to success is collaboration, but the problem with collaboration, and most collaboration, they fail because we are just collaborating with people that are thinking the same way that we are thinking ourselves. Because that's normal. We like to hang around with people that think in the same way. But that's actually fairly stupid. Because in order to be truly successful, well, it's about collaboration, but it's about diversity. And diversity is not just about being nice. It's not about skin color or like boy or girl or something in between. It's about perspectives. If you have a group that where everyone has the same background, then they probably will have the same perspective. And if we are trying to solve complicated or complex matters, then it's fairly stupid to only have one perspective. And why is this so hard? Well, I got obsessed with the word collaboration many years ago, and I've been obsessed with diversity. Today, I'm obsessed with this word, trust. Because this is the reason why most collaboration things fail. We don't trust each other, and we especially don't trust people that are different from ourselves. And that's something that we need to overcome. I often say that most people are fairly smart. I think that we should trust more people more than they deserve. Because you often think that, oh, I'm trusting people, and then they do some kind of mistakes, and then you say, okay, I give you a second chance, and then they fail again, and you will not trust them. In order to be truly successful, it's about giving people more chances. And I truly have a positive view of humanity. I think that if you can create a society or a corporate world which is based upon trust, then that we are on the right way. Another thing that is super important, especially today, is curiosity. And a lot of people, they tell me, oh, I'm a super curious guy, but they tend to do the same thing over and over. And for me, it's not just about saying words. You need to walk the talk. You need to be truly curious. And curiosity has been something that has been very important for me. I told you in the beginning, I get bored very easily. So after working for the Nobel Prize Museum for 4 years, I went to the director and told him I want to quit because I'm bored. And he looked upon me if I was crazy, and he asked me, what do you want to do instead? Well, I didn't tell you when I started working here because I didn't trust you, but after 4 years, I trust you a little bit more. So I'm obsessed with data. I would love to analyze each and every Nobel Prize laureate. And he looked upon me as if I was crazy, and he said, yeah, you can do that as long as you do the same thing you did before. And yes, I'm obsessive, but I'm also a little bit stupid. So he tricked me into doing two full-time works, and I got paid for one. But I didn't care because I spent the next 4 years of analyzing patterns, Nobel patterns. And one very important thing that I saw, and I will not get stuck in this slide, but everyone is talking about how fast technology is moving, and we are talking about exponential things and like that. And I was always been interested and curious about technology. I remember when I got my first home computer in 1982, I logged on internet in 1992 or something. And when you did that in 92, it was mostly strange stuff. But today, everything is connected. But the problem is, when you go to those outliners, you say, You have those crazy people like Elon Musk pushing people to move to Mars or whatever. And then people say, no, that's not going to happen. This is science fiction. This is crazy stuff. And something that I learned by analyzing Nobel Prize laureates, you should be very careful today when you start calling people crazy, because technology is pushing the envelope. So things that used to be impossible 2 or 3 years ago is not impossible anymore. And I'm not a technology expert. I'm fairly good, but I'm an expert on Nobel Prize laureates. So this is a slide that I want to show you, because 2 years ago, last year, the Nobel Prize in physics went to 3 people. One of them was actually working in the United States at the Bell Labs. He's 96 years old. He's still working. He's brilliant. He was one of the people who invented the laser in the 60s. The 2 other people, they got the Nobel Prize for this CPA thing, which is eye surgery. And when I started going into this rabbit hole, I understood that a laser in the 1960s was a big thing that you didn't want to get close to. And eye surgery is quite advanced, but it's not about eye surgery or big stuff from the 60s. It's about the Eli thing, because that's the level that the laser technology will be within the next years. And as you can see on this chart, if 1960s is something big you don't want to get close to, and CPA is eye surgery, what can Eli be? Hopefully, I'm actually looking forward. Will we finally see those lasers or whatever? The thing is, when we speak about technology and curiosity, I got really, really interested and curious about disruptive stuff. And I've been spending the last 5 years meeting a lot of companies and organizations all over the world. And sometimes I'm invited as a keynote speaker, and sometimes I help companies with other stuff. And they often ask me, so what is the next thing? And since I try to be a little bit polite when I get invited, for example, I often tell people, well, you are probably doing a lot of good stuff. Maybe you're on the top line. But there are people in your industry that are doing almost the same thing, but maybe not on the same level, on the lower line. The problem with disruption is that very seldom happens in your own ecosystem. It's happening outside your own ecosystem. And why do you not invite people outside your own ecosystem? And then people often tell me, well, because they don't know anything about industry, they are stupid. I want to stress this. People are not stupid. You should be very careful when you start thinking people are outside your ecosystem are stupid. Because disruption, as I told you, often happens outside your ecosystem. It was not the television channels who created YouTube. It was not the hotels that created Airbnb, etc., etc. And this is not just for business. This is also for society. This is happening in the United States, and I've been working quite a number of times in the United States, and I think you have a wonderful country. But since I'm not from the United States, I don't fully understand it, and I'm actually quite curious about your country. But I don't think that I'm mistaken when I say that a lot of people, they were quite surprised when you had the last American election to become the United States president, and when Donald Trump won the election. As people in Europe were quite surprised when the British people decided to vote to leave the European Union. And once again, it's the same thing, because people are hanging in their own silos, and then they are disrupted. And how do we make sure that we prevent disruption from happening to ourselves? Well, it's not super easy, but it's not even rocket science. It's about this. This is my hometown. This is Stockholm, Sweden. It's a beautiful city, and a lot of people come here, and Sweden are actually doing quite good stuff in different things, in different areas. You have huge unicorns like Spotify, but you also have companies like IKEA and whatever. And the Swedish school system is quite all right, etc., etc. And then delegations comes to Sweden and they ask, what are you doing differently? Are you feeding people things? What's the secret sauce? And they say, you have the secret recipe in this picture. And then often people have this question mark saying, what do you mean? As you can see, This is a town or a city built upon different islands. It's not about the islands, it's about the bridges. Sweden don't have so much hierarchies. If I want to do some tech stuff, I just walk over a bridge and I go to the Royal the technology university and I grab some smart people. The problem with them that they don't know anything about business, so I grab them to Stockholm School of Economics. And the problem with those people, they don't have any money, so then I grab them and I go somewhere else, maybe to a huge company or whatever. If I try to do the same things in other countries, I often have a problem because, for example, in Germany, I'm not allowed sometimes to exit the rooms because I'm not a double doctor. And in a time when people are screaming for more regulations and more walls, I will tell you something. I believe personally walls are very stupid. And I don't believe in more regulations. I believe in bridges. It's all about the bridges and it's about how we connect. And in order to be truly successful, it's about to making those bridges. Walls will never be the future. Another thing that we can learn, and something that I want you to think about, is the importance of experimentation. A lot of people, they tell me, oh, we need to test new things. Testing, that's boring, because testing, then you have an idea what you will end up with. I never do testing. I do experimentation. And I think that the only way to push the envelope is to embrace this experimentation feeling. When I decided finally after 8 years to leave the Nobel Prize Museum, I understood that maybe I got a little bit addicted to the Nobel Prize. So I needed to replace the Nobel Prize with some kind of new drug. And I didn't want just to get stuck with one drug like the Nobel Prize laureates. I didn't want to become like a Nobel Prize laureate hoarder. So I understood I need to broaden my mind. And then I stumbled upon something that is very important. I stumbled upon another prize, which is fairly similar. It's called the IG Nobel Prize, and it's handed out in the United States every year. And since then, I've been following this very carefully. And the IG Nobel Prize is a prize handed out at Harvard every year. It goes to researchers all over the world who makes research that makes people laugh and then to think. And speaking about those meetings, we go to a lot of meetings and most meetings are fairly boring. So there were this group of people, this group of researchers that thought, wouldn't it be funny if we could have, like, during those meetings, like living animals levitating in the room? And they didn't just think about it, they decided, let's execute this idea. So they took frogs, they put metal in the walls, and they fed those frog magnets. And they made the frogs levitate in the room, which is for me brilliant, because then my brain starts thinking, what happens if you feed other things magnets? Could you feed small children or old people? And it's not about getting stuck with these frogs, because one of those people that fed the frogs magnets, he showed up in Stockholm when I was working for the Nobel Prize Museum. And at that time, in 2010, he received the Nobel Prize in Physics. And what did he receive the Nobel Prize for? Well, it was not about feeding magnets to frog. It was about finding a new type of material. And how did he and his colleague come up with this idea? Well, they played around. The same thing they did with the frog, but they took Scotch tape, they put it on a piece of graphite. They managed to peel this graphite layer for layer, and they managed to make something that everyone thought was impossible, a one-atom layer of carbon, which is a new material called graphene. It is the world's strongest material. If you produce a graphene layer, it's stronger than diamond. It leads to electricity, and you can do a lot of interesting stuff with it. I've seen companies like Samsung producing TV screen out of graphene, etc., etc. This is just the beginning. This is the nanomaterial. This is going to totally disrupt, for example, the printing industry. And it came through because they played around with a piece of carbon and a Scotch tape. And this is, for me, truly amazing, because when this frog-feeding guy, also known as a Nobel laureate, held his thank you speech during the Nobel banquet in the City Hall of Stockholm, he said that human progress has always been driven by a sense of adventure and unconventional thinking. And I say this again, human progress has always been driven by a sense of adventure and unconventional thinking. In order to push the envelope, we need to not just think new, we need to act new. And I was truly super happy last year when they announced the Nobel Prize laureates or the prize laureates in economics, because 3 people received the prize in economics last year, and they got it for their experimental approach to try to solve global poverty. Because those economists, they've said it's not enough just to sit at the great university and have these theories. You need to go out and do testing in real life. So they are testing in Africa or India, they are testing in schools and hospitals. They are doing real-time experiment with people, and that's how we learn, that's how we push the envelope. And speaking about your industry, I got obsessed with the IG Nobel Prize, and I want to show you this picture. This guy is having like this thank you speech for the IG Nobel Prize winners, but you can see this guy who is painted in silver with a flashlight. That's a small detail that is very, very interesting, because I got really curious about who is this guy. And the thing is, this guy is the inventor of the human flashlight. And maybe this sounds silly and not like relevant, but this guy is also one of the inventor of 3D printing. His name is Jim Bent. And the thing is, you should be very careful when you tell people that they are crazy, because that's how we move things forward. A lot of people, they tell me that you are a little bit too obsessed with words, but I don't care. I always try to see some kind of logical structure. And then I stumble upon this quote. And for many years, I thought it was Stephen Hawking who said those wonderful words. And then I went back and I really wanted to know if he did and when and how he said it. But I can't track it back. And today I actually don't know if he ever said it. And I actually don't care, because I only care about the words. And I still believe that those words are so true. Intelligence is the ability to adapt to change. But the problem here is the word change. Because if you ask people, do you want to change? Most people tell you, no, I don't think so. I'm happy. I don't want to change. And what do you do in order to change people's behavior? Because change is not something you can decide not to do. It's about everything is changing. We can't stop this. And in order to create a better world, we need to allow more people to be part of this process. So in order to do this, I try to avoid the word change. And today, I always use the word improvement. Because if you ask people do you want change, they will tell you no. And then you ask people, do you think there is something here that we can improve? People will tell you yes. And this is a very inclusive way to bring people to start doing good stuff. I'm going to close this zone. I want to say something going back to my experience to the Nobel and especially to the Nobel Prize Museum. Maybe you can get this impression that you don't need to go to the museum, and well, you don't because you already have the words. But there is another thing that I was not the inventor of, and which is quite interesting, because they wanted to be a little bit outside the box. So in the museum, they have a cafeteria, and under the cafeteria chairs, the museum director decided that the Nobel Prize laureates should sign their autographs, which was like a crazy idea. And from the beginning, I liked it. And then I thought, autographs is still autographs. It's fairly boring. And they needed someone who was going to tell the Nobel Prize laureates that they should sign their names underneath a chair. And no one wanted to do that because it was crazy, so it ended up at me. And sometimes when people give me a responsibility, they don't think. So I was responsible for this procedure, and one of the Nobel laureates asked me, when I've written my name, can I write something else? And this is the problem with me. I never ask for permission. Sometimes I just do it. So I told him, you can do whatever you want to. You are a Nobel Prize laureate. And those of you who have a more of a traditional job, be a little bit careful, because I was called up to my director and I was almost fired, and I was not allowed to attend this ceremony no more. But today, sometimes the Nobel laureate, they write small messages inspired by the others underneath the chairs. And in 2017, a Nobel Prize laureate in chemistry, Richard Henderson, he wrote, "Time consists of past, present, and future. Of these, future is the most interesting." And I've been thinking about this a lot, because I think this is so true. I think that most organizations and people get stuck in the past, or they get stuck in the present. And when I start talking about this, then they tell me, well, that's normal, because we don't know anything about the future. We know something about the past and we can understand the present, but the future hasn't happened yet. And I've been thinking a lot about this since I have a background in languages. And I think the problem is that we were all taught in school that the future is a noun, and it just happened. That's incorrect. The future can't be a noun, because the future is always created by someone. And if it's created, then the future is a verb. And if you see the future as a verb, then you have a different perspective, because then you have two choices. You can do nothing, then someone else will create your future. Or you roll up your sleeves, start working, and then you become part of creating the future. And I would like to challenge your minds a little bit. This, for me, is a picture of the past. This is Albert Einstein. He was a brilliant person. He was a genius. But the problem with Albert Einstein is that we think upon him as a genius. We think that he was sitting alone in this study chamber and he had this spark from God, which is incorrect. Remember the first picture I showed you, the most intelligent photo from this conference? He was attending conferences. He was meeting people, especially people outside the field of academia, to bounce his theories. Einstein did not work alone. He was using networks of other people in order to be truly successful. And if Einstein couldn't do it by himself, then you need to be truly super smart and clever if you think you're going to do the things by yourself. And I would stick up my head and say, I don't think most people are as smart as Albert Einstein. So please stay away from this, I'm going to do everything by myself. That's fairly stupid. Instead, I think this is the present. We bring people together. This is a picture from Google. When they brought a lot of people together, they drove this hackathon for a couple of days. They ate pizza and drank soda. They worked together. And what did they come up with? Well, they developed a prototype of Gmail, which was very, very, very successful. But the problem with this picture, because I love collaboration, is the word trust. How can we create situations where we trust each other? And I personally don't think that we will trust 2,000 other people. And this is actually a big problem for the big tech companies today. Can we trust them? So this is where we are today. This is the present. And how do the future look like? Well, you will maybe think that I'm totally crazy, but this is the future for me. No, it's not about toys, but it's toys in this picture. I'm a little bit of a nerd, so this is Transformer toys, robots. Those of you who know anything about Transformers, you also know that there are some of the Transformers that are called combiners. They can form huge robots. Someone becomes the torso, and another one becomes the leg, and someone is the head. Stay away from the films. They are not very good, but I think you get what I'm targeting. We need to build smaller units of people who come from a bit different background with a clear vision to execute stuff. That's how you do it. And that's what I spend my days of doing now. Developing structures of creating those new type of organizations, those kind of units that are pushing the envelope. And going back to the words on the museum floor, just before I quit, I filled in the words, and this network, which is network in English. Now they are not filling them in anymore, so they are disappearing. But we shouldn't underestimate the importance of a network. The problem with network is that people, they don't often get it because they think that if I give them something, they need to give something back, which is incorrect. Because the network is not just about transactions, it's about giving without expecting stuff back immediately. Because the more you give in a network, the more you get back. Because if you have two phones, you get 1 connections. If you have 5 phones, you get 10 connections. If you have 12 phones, you get 66 connections. This is exponential. The more you put, the more you share in your network, the more you get back. And then people say, well, if I share too much, some people will take that and they will run. Well, sometimes that happens, but then those people has broken the trust and they will not be around for a long time. Networks are brilliantly designed, and we need to understand that with the more we help each other, the better it gets. So my suggestion is that you need to open up your networks, and you need to open up the networks for people outside your own industry. Otherwise, you will have a huge problem with disruption. And it's not just about me. I don't care about myself. I care about bringing things to life. But if someone would like to connect with me, feel free to do that. I'm a little bit like, I have a broken brain. I don't care. But I love people to connect with. I would like to say something also about print. And I would like to give you this example. These are 2 lines. This is audio. This is an analog, and this is a digital one. And it used to be that if you go back, if you look upon the music industry, that we thought that, oh, we are going to get rid of those vinyls, records, and everything was going to be digital. And if we look upon the situation today, there are still people collecting vinyl records, and they are quite expensive. And it's a little bit different sound. And this is something that we need to realize. Digital is not replacing analog. It's not like when we went from hunters and gatherers to the industrialization phase. We left things behind. We will have 2 different systems working on the side. And the trick is to understand, when shall we use what? When should it be digital? When should it be analog? Because going back to try to do the same thing we did before, where everything was printed, is stupid. But thinking that we will not need any printed stuff at all is also even more stupid, because the trick is to understand when to do what. And in order to understand, to navigate in this very complex world, you need more people with a different view to help you, to guide you in this process. We need to create a system where everyone becomes a winner. And how do we do that? By opening up and bringing people together, telling people what it's all about, and starting to work together. And it all starts with trust. Those organizations and those people that fully understand this will be successful in the future. Those who don't think that, oh, we are going to do almost the same as we did, they will disappear. And I don't like people just disappearing. I think in the future, we need more people, not less, that are participating. And I think my time is almost up. So I didn't check the chat. Is there any questions, Deborah? No, I can't hear you. No sound.
So sorry. Not exactly questions. People are just more, really fascinated with what you're saying. But I actually have a question. It's something that we talked about in our phone call. You're talking about creating a situation where people can work together and can collaborate. And at the same time, the message of the world is stay away from each other.
Yeah.
Don't stay away from me. Don't come near me. So is the same type of collaboration possible remotely? And what are the messages do you think doing to the young minds that are forming now about, and maybe potentially having fear of humans?
Well, the thing is that something that has been bothering me a lot since this Corona COVID thing happened is that, as you understand, I strongly believe that the only way to do it is with working together. It's about collaboration. But what's happening with the Corona is it's the opposite. That the countries have closed down, the silos have shut down. We are not working together anything more because we think that we must just survive. But this is not just about surviving. It's about, if we want it to be about something else, this is a golden opportunity. We have this clear problem that we need to solve. We all know that the only way to do it will not be a solo show. It will be about doing it together, and we need to open up. And especially in these times, as speaking about this, it doesn't necessarily need to be in the same way that it used to be, that you needed to meet each other to gain this trust. I think by combining analog and digital, there is a golden opportunity to create this. And we need also to understand it's not just about sitting and waiting for the countries or the politicians or the corporate to act, because it's about people. And we can connect even if I can't travel to United States right now due to the situation, it doesn't mean that we can't work together. And I think that we need to understand, this is not perfect. It would be super nice to come and see you and maybe give you a hug, but it's not the time for that right now.
Right.
Hopefully it will be, but in order to we can't just stop doing nothing. We need to find new connections.
We actually do have a question from Robert Godwin. It's pretty interesting. So we're talking about, collaboration, and if you think about a salesperson, right? They spend a lot of their time, managing their time as far as how they're going to spend it, reaching out to people and things like that. So Robert's question is, what is your suggestion for breaking the ice on the first outreach? And do you understand? That's an American expression.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think especially when it comes to sales, there is a big problem there, because it has been about good sales is about presenting like a solution or something that is good for the customer. And by doing that, then you make the salesperson a winner and the customer a winner. But the problem with sales is that it has also been misused in order to try to take advantage of the customer. And then the trust bound between the salesman and the customer is broken. And once again, for me, that's the old way of doing it, and it's not working, and it's not going to work. So I think a very important thing for someone working in sales is to open up, and especially to listen to the customer. It's not just about the salesperson talking, it's allowing the customer to talk, to be part, because we are doing it together. We need to find a solution which is good for both parts.
Well, sometimes people say telling a joke could be a good icebreaker. Now, I know you've been working on your comedy material, because something I learned about Tobias, everybody brings something different to the table to combine. And when I met Tobias, he could calculate how many Nobel laureates are there?
950, and they are announcing the new ones in October. So I'm looking forward to that, because then we have new material.
Okay, see how excited he gets? But he's got all that data in his head, and he is constantly processing it. So I said, well, that's lovely. Can you tell a joke? And he's like, it didn't go over very well. So I know you've been practicing, so let's hear a joke.
Okay, I'm not I'm not being so good at practicing this summer. I'm really bad at it. Yeah, and this is actually, I've been thinking about this a lot, because I think that in order to break the ice we need people to tell jokes, etc. But I also think that once again, this is about being a combiner. If that's my weak point, then I need to hang around with people that are really good in making jokes, because otherwise I'm doomed. I need to find people that can help me out, and those people are probably not the same people that are loving to analyze data, etc.
Okay, so you don't have a joke. You didn't practice a joke?
I promise to. I try to be better and to improve myself. So next time I speak to you, I will give you a joke.
Okay, I am still looking. It's been a few years. I'm still looking forward to one joke, a knock-knock joke. It could be very, very simple.
Yeah.
It doesn't have. You don't have to calculate the universe in it. So people have asked if you're going to make these slides available.
Yeah, of course. I'm a big believer in sharing. So if anyone wants these kind of slides, please let me know, and please share this, because for me, it's not about keeping things a secret. I truly believe that we can improve stuff. And when I was joking before that maybe I could steal with pride, for me, it's not about steal. It's about improvement. We were talking about that some time ago. And
the improvement movement, we named it.
Yeah, we named it the improvement movement. And of course, if you improve stuff, then of course it's very important to always credit people that, I got these slides from another person and I improved them a little bit. And once again, going back to trust, that's how you do it. It's not just about running around stealing stuff. It's about being open, transparent, telling people we need to do it. And sometimes we need to experiment, and sometimes this experiment turns out very good, and sometimes it's not, and that's how we learn.
Yes, absolutely. Tobias, thank you so much for your time and for your thought leadership. And Karis has put the link to Tobias's LinkedIn profile, and you could also find him at combiner.se. He is from Sweden, if we didn't mention that in the beginning. Thank you so much. We're going to get ready for the next presentation, and I'm coming back for that joke, Tobias. You know, I'm not going to let it go.
Let's schedule something, and then we video it, and then we put it online.
Okay, I'm going to get you to do a 3-minute comedy routine. I'm going to help you do this. I think it'll help you. Okay, thank you so much, Tobias.
Bye-bye.